What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Strong Shot Archery Reviews, where you get the most unbiased, objective reviews so my personal preference doesn't affect your money. Today we're going to be comparing two more high-end bows from two of the top brands in the compound archery world. The 2018 Prime Logic versus a bow from PSE's Evolve series, the Carbon Air Stealth SE. Before we get started, I just want to thank everybody for their feedback and support on the first video. I really appreciate it. For those of you who are new, I think you'll realize that this isn't a typical review. I'm not trying to convince you to buy this bow or that bow. What I'm trying to do is trying to help everybody find the bow that's best for them. I've put thousands and thousands of hours into becoming a better competitive shooter, and I love archery. I love everything about archery, but archery can be frustrating at times. So hopefully I can share some of the things that I've learned to help you get the most out of this sport. I also want to say thank you to Bear Creek Archery, which is a local range in Denver, Colorado. And as you may know, I'm a huge believer in supporting your local archery range because these local shops are the biggest supporter for both competitive and recreational shooting. So if you're in the Denver area, I can't recommend Bear Creek enough. They're great people, they have world-class tuning, and it's just a great shop in general. And I just want to say a special thanks to Ed, who let me borrow his PSE for this video. So if you're in the area, make sure to stop by. So alright, let's get started. So as you probably know, both of these bows are primarily hunting platforms, and there are a lot of similarities. So let's look at the standard specs first. Both of these bows are in the typical hunting axle-axle range, with the Carbon Air Stealth SE being a couple inches larger. When you include the cam size, the PSE turns out to be a few inches larger overall. It might impact what bow case you buy, but that's about it. The brace height on the PSE is shorter than what's on the Prime, so you'll get more of a power stroke out of that bow. What you're sacrificing is having the arrow on the string for a few milliseconds longer. Just remember that the longer that the bow and arrow are connected, the more likely that torque or bow movement can impact your shot. Surprisingly, even with the difference in brace height, the two bows are almost identical in speed. We'll talk about the draw force curves later and how this all works together. The elephant in the room is the weight. This isn't a fair comparison since the Carbon Air is carbon, but seriously, if you're ever in your local range and you see one of these on the wall, you have to try it out and just pick it up. It is crazy light. And when we're talking about carbon bows, the next thing to talk about is price. So here it is. You have to realize that any bow of this caliber is an investment that should last you for years. But when it comes down to it, it's always more expensive to buy the wrong bow than it is to spend more money on the right bow. Your job is just to make sure that you find the right bow for what you need and that fits your budget. At the same time, I have no money, so what do I know? Okay, let's talk about configurations. The draw length ranges for these bows are pretty close to the same, but pay attention to the slight differences if you're at the top or bottom of the scales. We see the same thing with the available draw weights. The Prime gives you a little more flexibility by having 65-pound limbs available. It might be a good option if you know that you won't be muscling back the full 70-pound limbs. The percentage of let-off that you have on your bow doesn't only impact how long you can hold, you have to consider the approach to the wall. Is it smooth when you hit the back wall? Does it cause excess movement? For my target bow, I prefer to have less let-off because it makes me stay stronger in the shot while I'm executing. And for me, having more holding weight helps my bow aim steadier, especially when there's a crosswind. It also provides just a little bit more speed, but my typical shot cycle is only 10 to 12 seconds, so I don't have to worry about stamina. The lesson here is that let-off percentage is one more thing you should experiment with. I think most people just get their bow, put it to a setting, and then never touch it again. But on a lot of bows, adjusting what you have and changing out the mods can be one of the cheaper things you can do to experiment. It's all about putting in the work to find what best fits you. Since a lot of this discussion is going to be about the cams, this is probably a good time to talk about the draw force curves. I'm going to show the Prime Logic in red and the PSE Carbon Air Stealth in blue. You can see that these curves look very similar in shape. The offset in the lines at the start of the draw is related to the difference in the brace height. The Carbon Air has a shorter brace height, so it starts earlier. We've already seen that the speed ratings on these bows are almost identical. But the curve tells us that the PSE makes its power from the start of the draw cycle, while the Prime makes it up by holding on the power more near the back end of the draw. Like I've said, how well you can control the draw as you come to the wall is critical with excess movement, but there are more things than just the curve of the cam that affects this. Let's go back to the let-off for a moment. For the most part, when you change the let-off on a bow, what you're really doing is changing the draw length from the back of the curve. You're not allowing the cam to rotate completely, so you're not allowing it to let off as much weight. So now you've reduced the let-off and increased your holding weight, but you've also impacted your draw length. Now you can gain this draw length back with twists in the strings and cables. This is where having a great local shop comes in. They know these bows inside and out, and they can help you with this process, but it's your job to keep experimenting until you find the best setup for you. In order to make these let-off adjustments on these bows, you'll see that the Prime has options on the cam for adjusting both the cable stops and the limb stops. The PSE comes with 3 settings on the standard setup, and they have another module that you can buy that will give you 3 additional settings. So 2 different ways to go about it, but they're basically the same thing. Anytime you might purchase a bow, you have to be careful about draw length. And I know this may seem obvious, but the fact is that not all bows handle draw length the same. A length that fits you perfectly for one brand might be too long or too short for another. They're supposed to be standard, but that's not always the case. Prime system comes with draw length specific cams. Each set is only good for one specific draw length, so you need to get the right set, or you might have to buy another set of cams if you don't get it right the first time. The PSE has the full range of lengths built into the cam, and it's just a quick setting change to go from one to another. And the worst situation that comes into play is if the bow is for a young archer that's still growing. When I was younger, I competed with a bow with draw length specific cams, and we would have to buy multiple cams just in case I had a growth spurt. If you know you're drawing for a certain bow and you know it won't change, I wouldn't hesitate in buying that bow. But if you're not fully sure and it might change, I would keep that in mind because it could cause some problems. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or put it down in the comments. I'll make sure to answer it, and everybody else could too. Wrapping up the cams. The one obvious difference that jumps out is the Prime's parallel cam system. This is unique in the industry as far as I know. It's their way of reducing cam lean. I wasn't able to test this out, but I definitely like how they think outside the box. Another unique feature on the Prime is their Flexus AR system that's designed to reduce bow torque. Just to be clear, this isn't torque that's caused by your grip, it's actually caused by the need to keep the cables out of the way of the arrow. Prime has a great video on this, I'll link that below in case you're interested. The PSE addressed bow torque as well with their FRS Flex Rod system. It's just another way to give you some adjustment capabilities so that you can minimize bow torque. Another difference in these bows are the draw stops. While a Prime has the option of having a cable stop or a limb stop, the PSE has only cable stops. I consider this to be personal preference. Limb stops are always going to give you a harder wall, but cable stops are going to dissipate the energy better if you hit the wall with some force. It's your call on what you like better, but make sure you keep in mind that the Carbonair Stealth only has cable stops. From a design perspective, Prime built the Logic Riser with the intent of having the grip centered between the cams. PSE's design is more of what you'll typically see in a compound bow design, where the grip is placed below the center point. You can see how this can impact the balance point of the Bear bows. Prime is balanced near perfectly at the throat of the grip. The PSE, this again is a very light bow, balances about 1.5 inches above the grip. We're probably never going to get through one of these comparisons without talking about the grip. I just think it's that important. Both grips are about the same width, and the grip angle on both bows is also about the same. They're in the typical 17 to 18 degree range that you'll find on many bows. The difference that's worth noting is the shape of the grip. The PSE has a 1/2 inch of flat landing area with rounded edges for comfort. The grip on the Logic is fully rounded. There isn't any flat surface on the face of the grip. This, like most things, is personal preference. I like the feel of the rounded grip, but I don't know if it's going to help me control the bow as easily. You'll have to try this out at the range and see how each of these grips react with your draw cycle. There's a huge aftermarket for dampening products, and it's something you'll have to decide on for yourself. Bare stock, the Logic comes with dampening on the cable guard, which is good because it's actually a moving part on this bow. The Carbonair Stealth comes with limb dampeners. When we look at the raw vibration measures, you can see that the Carbonair Stealth seems to produce more vibration than the Logic. You have several options to improve these results on your bow, but this is just a starting point. So now we can wrap this up. In my opinion, the only way to find the right bow for you is to try it out at your local archery shop. You can't watch videos or go on online forums and then sum it up that this bow is right for you. Archery is an individual sport and you have to try it out yourself to find what's best for you. That being said, here are a few things you need to look for when evaluating these bows. Number 1, weight and cost. If you're not in need of an ultralight bow, I don't know if it makes sense to spend the extra money for one. That's not to say that it isn't super cool, because it is. It's going to be elk season in Colorado in a few weeks, and I can really see myself wanting this light bow when I'm up there in the mountains. But if having a light bow isn't important to you, I might spend that money on other things. Number 2, cams and draw force. The speed on both of these bows is pretty much the same. It's always good to try a bow out to see how the cam matches your ability to control the draw cycle of the bow. Remember, the Carbonair Stealth has a shorter brace height, which allows it to fall into the valley earlier. The Logic makes up for that by being more aggressive near the wall. Number 3, draw length. The only word of warning that I have is to make sure that if you decide on the Prime Logic, that your form is locked in so that you buy the correct draw length cam. I have absolutely no concerns about Prime's bow, but I've seen a lot of people who are starting out make poor purchases. I just really want everybody to enjoy archery, and having the proper draw length is an absolute necessity. Your local shop will be crucial in this step. Number 4, grip. When you're testing these bows at your local range, concentrate on how the grip feels. Does one shake more than the other for you? Does one settle quicker? Add a stabilizer and see how that changes things. There is no right or wrong answer here, but grip is key in getting consistent results. Pay attention to it. And finally, this is where I see the best application for these bows. Obviously, the PSE Carbonair Stealth SE is meant to be carried long distances. Again, you seriously have to pick one of these up to believe it. The Prime Logic packs a ton of technology and thought into their design. I love how they think outside the box and drive innovation. I think that the Logic is a solid all-around bow, and I think that it's worth trying out because it's not a cookie-cutter typical compound. But only you can decide whether those features work for your style. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video helps you understand what you need to consider when you go to your local archery range and try out these bows. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. More videos are on their way. And also thank you to Bear Creek Archery and Ed for letting me borrow these bows to make this content for you guys. So thank you guys very much, and thank you for all the support on the last video. It means a ton. And thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.